Hello everybody and welcome to week 2 of Keto Bonito. It's great to have you all here, and I want to dive straight in this week to something that is directly relating to keto and intermittent fasting, which is insulin resistance. As always, I'll be referring to my notes, which are down here in the corner, so forgive me for that because there is an awful lot to get through, and it does actually help if I have a little bit of a prompter going on there so I can actually help even more, hopefully. So let's talk about insulin resistance, which is a metabolic disorder which a lot of people don't really know about, and one of the symptoms is actually type 2 diabetes, so this gives you a bit of a clue as to where we're heading on this little journey. So when we eat, we're actually fueling our bodies, so we can say that fuel is the first thing that happens when we eat. It provides us with nutrients that we need to survive, minerals and vitamins, proteins, all of that. And then when we go about our daily business, we actually use it up. So first of all, we're fueling, then we use, and any that's left over, any food or nutrients that are calories that are left over will be stored in our bodies, and mostly it will be stored as fats. So then when we fast, well, we should be fasting obviously, but when we're doing this diet, we are fasting more often than not. And so when we fast, those stores are used up again so that we're ready once again to eat. So it's like a little circle. It's like eat, fuel, then it's use, store, use, and ready to go again. So we're kind of on this lovely little cycle of fueling and going about our daily business and doing what we need to do. Now, when we're eating too many complex carbohydrates like bread, potatoes, rice, pasta, etc., we're going to activate an organ in the body called the pancreas. And the pancreas has a couple of functions, but the main function in its life is to secrete insulin. And the reason that it secretes insulin is that the insulin will take out the glucose coming from complex carbohydrates in your body, and they will actually store this within the cells of the body. And the first cells that get stored up are the ones close by, which is why we tend to put on weight around our midriff, especially in later years. So it is essentially a fat storing hormone. Now, when we continuously eat these complex carbohydrates, the insulin levels are high a lot of the time, especially if we have a longer, larger eating window. Remember last week we were talking about the eating window being really quite large, and so consequently we end up eating nearly all day or the majority of the day, sometimes 12-14 hours for some people. So reducing that eating window means that we are not actually producing so much insulin. But if we do the opposite, which is to eat carbohydrates and have a larger eating window, then the insulin levels are high nearly all the time, and eventually this becomes almost toxic to the body. The cells of the body absolutely refuse to accept any more of the glucose that the insulin is trying to push into the cells to get rid of it out of the bloodstream, and essentially the cells will just shut down and say, no more glucose, I refuse. And this is where we get to insulin resistance. So now what's happening is that we are having even more blood glucose in our blood, and this is circulating around our body, and this is very, very serious stuff. You'll know that if you have been for any kind of blood glucose tests in the past, that if they're high, then your doctor will tell you either to lose weight or to exercise more, or both, or potentially you might even get put onto something called metformin or a similar drug to that. And also you can pretty much be guaranteed that your poor old pancreas will have been given a right old bashing, because whilst there is all of this excess glucose in the blood, the pancreas is constantly pumping out insulin, constantly to try and get rid of it. Of course, the more cells refuse to take the blood glucose, unfortunately, the more insulin is pumped out into the body. This is where we get to a position now that we can call type 2 diabetes or pre-type 2 diabetes. We're exhausting the pancreas, which by now is probably going to be medicated with metformin. If you are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, you don't tend to get prescribed any medication, but you're told to alter your lifestyle for sure. So some other drug might be issued as well, like statins as well as metformin, with statins which actually alleviates cholesterol. We'll be talking about cholesterol in another video. Very, very important stuff, so make sure you're there for that one. And effectively, that drug will force the glucose into the cells. So instead of it is actually reducing the problem initially of getting the glucose out of the blood system, but all it's doing is doing a doubly excessive insulin job, which is to force the glucose into cells, which essentially is going to be storing extra fat. So it's a kind of a catch-2 situation when you get to that position. Over the years, if things don't change, you're on the metformin, you don't change your diet, you don't do what you're supposed to be doing and do keto and fasting, for example, if things don't change, then the pancreas will actually just give up from overworking, even with metformin. And this is something that they will tell you, hopefully, when you're at the GPs and you're being prescribed metformin initially. They will tell you to alter your diet and lifestyle, etc. But if you don't do that and you stay on the metformin and you carry on eating the way that you are and not doing as much exercise, then you will end up having to inject synthetic insulin into your body, which of course then is type 1 diabetes, which is a very, very serious condition. But let's talk about what happens to you when you get type 2 diabetes. Eventually, you will get most of these symptoms, and it can be a real life threatener. So we're talking heart disease and stroke. We're also talking loss of feeling and pain. That's mostly in the extremities. A lot of people will have issues with their feet and their hands. You'll get more sores and infections as a result of low circulatory issues, which could lead to amputation if you're not treated. You will need to have your eyes checked all the time because you will unfortunately lose vision and maybe go blind. If you're young and you're still pre-menopause, then you may actually suffer with a miscarriage or a stillbirth. And also you can get problems with your kidneys, and you may even, if you're male, then have sexual problems like getting or keeping an erection. So all of these issues will come from the fact that type 2 diabetes affects the small blood vessels. So small blood vessels in your eyes, your kidneys, penis, brain, all these sort of things, and all the way down to the tiny little blood vessels in lungs and also in your digestive system. It's extremely dangerous disease, and it can actually kill you if you don't do something about it. Now, type 1 diabetes is even more serious, because then you are definitely on a fast track for heart disease, stroke, circulatory issues once again, and also blindness. So of course, all of these are major issues. Some of the issues that are caused from insulin resistance. Now remember, insulin resistance is the metabolic thing. That is the umbrella under which all of these things hang. So of course you've got type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and you can also get sleep apnea, fatty liver disease, which is extremely dangerous. Alcoholic fatty liver disease is bad enough, but it's now been overtaken in the world by non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And this is where we have just got way too much fat around our livers. We've been talking about visceral fat collecting around our organs last week, and this is really quite serious. Your liver can't work properly, you cannot clean your blood, and you will end up getting sick in some form or another, potentially forming things like hepatitis, the hepatitis family. So really quite serious. And also you are going to be more susceptible to PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. Now, polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, is actually a disease that you can get really quite early on in life. I was diagnosed with PCOS when I was about 25 or 26 years old. I was told I would not be able to have any children, and I ended up having half the thyroid taken out because I had cysts on my thyroid. You can get cysts on your ovaries, on your uterus if you're a woman, on your thyroid and other organs within the body. It's very, very serious. You can always get Cushing's syndrome as well, which is an extremely serious illness. Elevated inflammatory markers, so you're actually worsening arthritis, respiratory issues like asthma, and skin conditions like dermatitis and acne. I don't know if you know, but also a good indication of insulin resistance is if you have skin tags. A lot of people get skin tags along the neck and down in the back. And this can be really quite nasty, and you can catch them all the time. They bleed and they can get infected. And even in really, really rare circumstances, they can become cancerous. So you will know if you're insulin resistant by the fact that you might have skin tags somewhere. Also, you increase cancer risk. Digestive cancers like pancreatic cancer and liver cancer. Pancreatic cancer, I saw somebody unfortunately waste away with pancreatic cancer, and it was really unpleasant. All cancer is unpleasant, obviously, but pancreatic cancer, he was in so much pain. It was horrific to watch. Increased chances of clotting resulting in heart attack, stroke, or pulmonary embolism. We've seen all of those. So the wonderful thing is that when we are on the ketogenic diet and include an intermittent fasting period in your day, we can actually keep insulin and glucose levels lowered considerably. And this, of course, then in turn protects the pancreas and digestive system, meaning that we can grow healthy bacteria back within our gut, because whilst the gut is working, it can actually kill off some of the bacteria in our gut, which of course we need it. We need it to help our digestion. And also it can help with immunity and neurotransmitter production. Now, not a lot of people realize, but the digestive system, particularly the large bowel or the colon, actually is responsible for about 70% of your immune system. So when we have issues in our gut from too overworking or too many sugars, all of that sort of thing, then we get issues and we can become sick more often. This is why during the Christmas season, when we're eating more sugary foods, eating more carbohydrates, we tend to get sick more easily. And everybody thinks that it's all to do with the winter. Yes, the winter does actually have an issue with this, but the main issue and the main problem is eating too many sugars and carbohydrates. And so our immunity is then lowered and we can catch everything. And of course, we're also gathering in larger quantities, seeing friends, traveling, going on airplanes, boats, cars, trains, to go and see our families and friends and loved ones. And so, of course, we're exposed a little bit more to these illnesses too. Now, neurotransmitter production is also quite an interesting thing to talk about. This is something that I am still actually geeking out a bit about. I have to say, I absolutely love this. Neurotransmitters are what keep our brain functioning, doing things, helping with our emotions, etc., and fight-flight responses, or everything from, sort of like prehistoric midbrain stuff to the high functioning at the front of the frontal lobe. And one of the things that we can miss out on is a particular neurotransmitter called GABA. Now, I cannot remember, it's an acronym, so it's GABA. I can't remember, it's this massively long word that I just cannot remember ever, despite many attempts. And GABA is the only neurotransmitter that is responsible for calming your brain down. So therefore aiding better sleep and helping us to remain stress-free, calming ourselves down, all of these things, because stress, another thing we're going to be talking about later, is an extremely important factor in our weight loss journey and our health journey overall. Stress is a big, big thing. And GABA is initially started, the production of GABA is initially started in the lower bowel. It's quite extraordinary, never ceases to amaze me. And so that's what's happening. And also I'm now starting to read up about other neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin, whose origins actually begin in the large colon, which it just beggars belief. We need so badly to look after our digestive system. And it's why we're getting more depressed. And it's the reason why there's more stressors and factors like that, because we're just not eating the right foods to actually help ourselves to create all of these wonderful neurotransmitters and also the immunity that we need to stay healthy all the time. Another thing about eating keto means that we have more sustainable energy output. Fat forming can be very, very tiring as well. And so when we eat a lot of carbohydrates and sugars, this can give us a bit of a slump. We talked the other week about the insulin levels rising when we have complex carbohydrates. They rise very, very high compared to proteins and fat ingestion. And so when we do eat carbohydrates, protein will be here, fat will be here, but glucose or carbohydrates will be way up here. So the spike of insulin that's needed to actually get rid of this food or to process the food is really high. And with this, the hunger hormone is alerted. And then once the insulin levels fall quite dramatically, then the hunger hormone, it's a bit like a splash in water effect. If you splash a ball in, then the water will come up. As soon as you splash the metaphorical insulin ball into the water, then the water, which we'll call the hunger hormone, rises up and out and makes you feel so much more hungry. And so this is the wonderful thing about fat burning and protein burning. It's long and slow. It's perfect. Absolutely wonderful. So that's what I wanted to cover this week. I also wanted to cover something that's actually quite exciting, which is to do with your bowels. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, this week you may find that you are becoming a little bit more constipated perhaps, and this is mainly due to the fact that we're eating less fruit and vegetables than normal, so our bowels are not getting as much fiber, and also because complex carbohydrates a lot of the time can be sort of fiber filled brown rice, brown pasta, brown bread, all of that sort of thing. And so increasing the amount of the amount of fiber in your digestive system. And so that would mean that you will want to evacuate your bowels a lot more during a high carbohydrate diet. Now you may find that that's not happening. So what we need to be able to do now is to drink way more water than we're used to. Liquid water, and also herbal teas, black coffee, black tea, all of these things really, really good just to keep everything moving within the body. Even green tea is good because if you're going for a bit of caffeine, small amount of caffeine is really good because that does actually increase the metabolism slightly and helps along the digestive process. So that's another good thing. If you want to go into even more holistic, which is what we're all about here, then you can include ginger in your diet as well, because that's always good. Ginger's a wonderful calmer and tamer of the digestive system, and also ginger and garlic are feeders of they actually feed all the good bacteria within your body. If you want to go even further into that, then you can access a massage blend for your stomach, where you rub in clockwise direction to actually aid your digestion, because this can sometimes be a bit of an issue. I've heard of some people finding it very, very difficult because they're a little bit constipated. So in order for you to keep moving the bowel and making sure that things are moving until your body's got used to the situation, then you can give yourself a little massage. Some of the essential oils that you can use in the massage are ginger and lavender and orange. Sometimes just make sure, call me or text me if you want a blend, because I can make up a blend for you. Or if you want to make your own blend, I can just give you an idea of how many drops you should be using per 10 mils or 20 mils of oil. Now, also we need to talk about keeping the fat content up in our diets, because a lot of the first sort of 2 or 3 weeks mistakes can involve not eating enough fat and or calories in fat. Now, I'm not saying that you should go and just be chomping on really great sticks of butter or anything like that, but we just need to make sure that we're adding a little bit more fat to everything that we're eating. Whether it be the actual foods themselves, like eating more olives or eating more avocados, or eating more oily fish, like specifically mackerel, sardines, anchovies. Go and eat all of them. They're all at the little chiringuitos along the edge of the Costa del Sol, so very, very handy. Just don't have them breaded. And you can eat all of those. If you're feeling a little bit like your electrolytes might be down because you're drinking more water and more fluids, then add more salt to your diet. Salt is another much maligned source of stuff from the health industry, and as well as fat and salt. Everybody tells you not to eat any of it and to exclude it from your diet. Actually, it's what we need. We need the salts. And if you're finding that eating a bit of salt is a bit tricky, then go for some mineral water. Not tap water or filtered water, but go for some mineral water like con gas. So with sparkling mineral waters, all have extra minerals in, and that can just help you to stay a little bit more alert and awake. Okay, so now we're coming to the end of this week's video. I've managed to be a little bit more succinct this time, hopefully, and so not taking up too much of your time, but I will be sending out the worksheet at the same time as this one, so you can have a good look at that. This week it's actually talking more about intermittent fasting and what happens, and hopefully next week we will be talking a little bit more about something called autophagy. And autophagy is an absolutely fascinating subject, and the Japanese chap who discovered and named it also won a Nobel Prize in biology for it. So we'll be talking more about that. This week in the worksheet I'll include some keto fat-filled foods, just to sort of help you along there. If you want any recipes, then just give me a shout. We've included intermittent fasting and also measuring. This week this week in particular, I'm struggling with keeping the weight. I'm even Stevens at the moment, so I'm assuming that what is actually happening is that I'm losing inches rather than mass. So that's okay. It is a little bit disheartening when you get on the climb on the scales and it's only week 3 and you're thinking, oh, but keep going. We can do this. This is what happens with keto. Your body is an amazing machine, and it's figuring it all out and trying to work out what to do. And when it clicks into gear, you will start losing the weight really fast. And also, more importantly, start to feel more healthy faster. Okay, thanks a lot for listening. See you next week. Bye-bye.